Welcome to the Common Sense Show. I am excited because I'm finally back. Now, listen, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Micah, um, you said that you were going to have your live show on Mondays at 8:30, and I was there Monday for you to show up for your live show, and you never showed up. Yes, but if you follow me on locals at commonsenseshow.locals.com, you'll realize that I sent a message out because I wasn't feeling well Monday. So, plus the Celtics were playing, so you weren't going to see me. And now that we're world champions, I'm back again. But today's podcast, I have a interesting. I'm actually geared up for this conversation because I have the CEO of a construction company, GIS, Eugene Gershman. We're going to talk about what he does, what they build, why they do it, how he was able to actually transform his family company into a niche that is kind of killing it right now, and what he did to kind of make that change and build the company up from where it was. But before we invite Eugene to the platform, I'm going to roll the introduction. 30 seconds, stay here, and then we'll bring Eugene up. Okay, Eugene, welcome to the Common Sense Show. I gave you as good of an introduction as I could, but nobody gives a better introduction than the person themselves. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you go from financial services to the family business and to want to take the bull by the horns.
Absolutely. Hey, Micah, pleasure being here. It was an interesting journey. I graduated back in, oh my God, back in 1999, a long time ago, with my bachelor's in economics, and I wanted to go into financial services. I got an internship at this little investment firm that was doing retirement plans for the folks locally here. Got my Series 7 license and thought that I'm on my way to be a financial advisor. And then a couple of years later, I got so bored of running Excel retirement plans and meeting with older folks and talking about their investments and picking mutual funds that I went back and signed up for an evening MBA program. And as I was going through that, my father's been running this construction company for years. He started back in early 90s. And right. Growing up, I've been involved in the business. I saw it evolve as I was finishing up college. I was like, I don't want to be in the family business. I'll do whatever I can do, but I don't want to be in the family business. I just want to be on my own. So that's how I ended up in financial services. And then in MBA, last year of my MBA, my father calls me. He says, hey, I've got this opportunity to invest into a project to expand our company, set up an office, and it's international. The opportunities in Hungary and Budapest. I didn't speak the language. We didn't know anybody there. He's like, I've got this set of papers. Why don't you take a look at it? So he sent me the paperwork. He sent me a bunch of Excel models, and I was an Excel nerd all the time. So I, dove in, went through all of the models, went through all of the write-ups, called them up, and I said, yeah, I mean, based on what they sent, sounds like an interesting project. And he goes, okay, well, sounds good. I'm about to fly out there. Do you mind joining me at the meetings, to help me out with between different languages? We had like 5 different cultures between partners. And so there were multiple languages flying around. So he's like, why don't you join me and help me out? I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. So I flew out there. We had a meeting, came back, requested additional documents, and one call after another, one email after another. There was another meeting. I flew out there. Anyways, we're making a decision that we're going to go into this project. We would set up our company there, or my father's making the decision. He would set up the company there. And then he goes, I wish I could have somebody that I could trust who could move down here and oversee the operations. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could do that. so that was my start in the family business.
Mm,
I just got married,
mhm,
and my wife and I said, we're free to go, free to do whatever. So we moved to across the world, moved to Hungary, stayed there for about a year, came back, and started looking at new opportunities. We're based out of Seattle area.
mhm.
Had some opportunities here, and I really, I didn't know construction operations that well.
Right.
I was always more on the business side. And so we thought there was an opportunity to buy property, a small property here, which we did. It was zoned for high rise construction. Uh, so we kind of started figuring out how to do this. And I literally had to learn how to be a real estate developer um, by doing it.
Right.
Hired a bunch of consultants and um, got help, and that's how it got started.
Hmm.
And then over the years, we would buy one property, then we'd buy another property. We started doing some single family. We set up our own construction company in the area. My sister and I, she joined the business later on, and we after a little while, we thought the only way for us to scale, the only way for us to do more projects and to actually make an impact in the community is to start partnering with property owners. We cannot physically buy as many properties that we would like to develop because each one takes a certain amount of capital.
Right.
But the partnership model would not only enable us to optimize our operations, but it would also enable other property owners to get their projects built and developed. And by then, we already had an expertise, we had experience, and we could offer that to the partners. So
Mm.
that's how it got started. It was a long path, but now looking back, it's been over 20 years. So
Yeah. What were some of the so you weren't initially uh trained in construction operations, as you said, and you know you had to learn your ropes as you went along. What helped you to get the institutional knowledge that you needed, get up to speed as fast as possible? Was it hiring for education, like through consultants? I know that you said that you did. How helpful were they to you, or honestly, was it just learn by failing and doing?
it's all of the above. Uh, Failure was definitely one of the greatest teachers.
Hmm.
We made a lot of mistakes over the years, but yeah, the initial start was definitely relying on consultants, relying on various advisors. I mean, my father was more heavily involved in the beginning, and
Hmm.
he gave me a lot of advice. Initially, my work was mostly focused on development work and putting together consultant team and design teams, and so that was I was more familiar with that. I mean, I had some management training skills, communication skills that definitely helped me out in the beginning.
Right.
But yeah, once construction projects actually started, we had to start hiring people in house, and again, made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of bad hires, and lost some money along the way, made some money along the way. But yeah, one foot in front of the other, as we say.
Right.
One lesson after another. That's how we learned it.
What were some of the critical mistakes that you made looking back that you know, well, you would never make again, but also that you had to correct in order to continue to thrive in business?
It starts from the very beginning. I mean, I think I made mistakes on every step of the way during the past 20 years. But the key, and that was the lesson that despite how many times my father told me that, despite how many times various consultants told me that, uh, you absolutely cannot cut costs when it comes to designing a building.
Mm.
Whenever you do that, it will bite you in the butt during construction. You will always pay for it many times over if you cut costs in the beginning. And that's probably the most important lesson that I had to learn. And I don't know why my screen just did a thumbs up, but
I think it's the Apple. If you have an Apple device, I think it's
right.
whenever you thumbs up, it does that. It's so weird.
Yeah, so design, very important. Engineers, trust your engineers, trust your architects, and always make sure that you ask questions early on. It's funny. In our project a few years ago, we joined a partnership with a property owner. He already had designs done. He already had building permits in hand, and we put our construction team, started going over the plans, and they saw a bunch of inconsistencies in the plans. We met with the architect, and we're like, the plans are raw. They're not finished. There's a lot more coordination, a lot more work that needs to be done. And the architect told us, well, I've only been paid a certain amount of money for a limited scope just to get through the permit process. It's like, I can finish the plans, but that was not part of my scope from the beginning.
Right.
And so then, okay, well, we already negotiated the financing. We already engaged a lot of subcontractors, and now we're coming to find out that the plans were not finished. So then they had to go back, they had to redraw, they had to change a bunch of things as they're coordinating, things are adding. I mean, on one of our jobs, after we already signed the contract with a concrete sub, we found out the revision came in from the engineering team, and that added the cost of the footings, I think, by, I forget, something like $500,000.
Unbelievable.
So that's a huge, I mean, it's a huge hit. You just started the job.
Yeah.
And right out of the bat, your contingency is cut in half.
Yep.
So
that's insane. And so how did you navigate that challenge? I mean, you had to get more financing, or what was your workaround for that?
In that particular case, we had, so we still had some contingency in the budget, so that had to be used up. Then we had to go back to the drawing board and see where else we can cut costs, and had to cut some scope. I forget all the details at this point, but that's what you have to do. Sometimes there is an opportunity to go and raise more money. Sometimes there isn't, because just by increasing the cost of foundation, you're not really adding any value to the building. So it's hard to go back to your investors or to your lender and say, oh, by the way, I need more money, but it's not going to improve the building at all. It's just going to make it stand.
Right. So. Yeah. That's a tough one. And what could you take away from that situation? Was it basically, we need to have a meeting before we start to figure out, before we sign the dotted line, we need to make sure that all the requisite employees, contractors are in place, and that what they have to spec and to design a build is already in place? What did you pull out of that situation that was useful to you?
The main lesson there is not to rush forward, even though you really want to run as fast as you can and secure that financing and get the construction team and start digging the dirt and pouring your concrete foundation and everything. But it is extremely important to take a step back and make sure your construction team is fully engaged. Pre-construction services is the most important step in any development process. A lot of beginner developers, inexperienced developers, think that they can get a permit set and then bid it out to multiple contractors and then go to work. It is extremely important to have a contractor engaged very early on and have those pre-construction services so that they could study the plans, so that they could estimate, they could bid out all aspects of construction before you sign that that loan paperwork.
Why is it that construction companies are notoriously poor with managing money when it comes to the project-based work toward the end of the project? I mean, they just notoriously have a difficult time budgeting, and I think everyone gets cost overruns and um, unexpected expense. But is there something else behind the lack of being able to control finances on a project or a build that you've kind of put your finger on?
I would say 90% of the time is deficiencies of the design.
Mm,
When the design is not finished and the contractor looks over the plans and starts making guesses of what certain details are going to look like, that's when they make mistakes.
mm,
I mean, I give you an example. We just recently received a set of plans for a new project, and we're flipping through it, and there are absolutely no finishes in that plan. Now,
right.
it's not necessary to have your finishes designed in order to get the building permit, because your municipality doesn't care what kind of carpet or what kind of faucet you put in there. All
Mm,
they care is that the building is safe, that structural calculations are done, that all of the life and safety functions of the building are there. That's all they need to know.
mm,
And so then you give that set of plans to your contractor. Contractor looks at, I don't know, a roof parapet
yeah.
and says, well, on our last project, we paid $50 a linear foot for this parapet. So we're going to budget $50, maybe 55 due to inflation. And then they go to work, they sign the contract. As you're going through, I use the parapet even though it's not a finish, but as an example. And then as you go through, you start looking at it, and you start looking at finishes, at your plumbing, at your electrical, at your tile, cabinets, and you're like, oh, I don't want that cheap tile. I want this nicer tile. Well, then your contractor will come back and say, look, you didn't really have a tile in your set of plans. So we put, $2 tile. But if you want this Italian $70 tile, then here's a change order.
Right.
And so should they have known when we told them it's going to be a high-end building that they should budget more? Yeah, they should have known. Should we have known? Yes, we should have known as well. We should have looked at all of the allowances, asked questions, and understand why certain costs are what they are. And so that's mostly where we see problems or differences between your expectations and the reality, is if you haven't thought of all of the details before you started the job.
It sounds like that also comes down to how carefully or closely you're going to manage the project too, right? Like kind of getting down the road a bit further than you would like to, so that, before decisions are made along the way. And it's like, well, before you make
Right.
this decision, check in. I noticed that there's a lot of, I feel like in the trade and construction field, there's a lot of people who don't like to be, and I guess no one really likes to be micromanaged, but in the corporate world, the reason why, you have in some cases the interconnected or operating functions of an organization that could be just as sophisticated as engineering design, work well, is because there are standard operating procedures that are followed and managed, and every piece of a project is managed almost excruciatingly throughout the entire lifetime of the project. Whereas it seems like there is a gap in some of that, and I know that a lot of firms have obviously project managers because you have to. But how closely do those project managers actually look at timelines and getting their work done? Do you find that that poses a problem at times, getting just kind of enforcing the structures of what you want your timeline to be, and just getting communication and feedback from some tradespeople who also, ironically, as burly as some tradespeople can be, are also very sensitive about the fact that you're actually saying
Right.
something to them.
No, of course, and it's funny that, especially in construction, it's mostly male-dominated field, and a
Yeah.
lot of times you get these big, grizzly guys that have been in the field with, rough hands, and a lot of times those are the most sensitive. It's like, come on, you guys.
Right.
But no, communication. Communication is the key.
Mm.
You have to be on site. You have to be there. I mean, it's funny. We had uh, new hires ask us, especially in the post-COVID world, "Hey, what's your work from home policy?" And we're like, "Dude, you're in construction. Get your ass to the job site. You got to be there. You got to know what's happening."
Can't pour
So,
concrete from 30 miles away.
right, right. Uh, so yeah, you have to be there. You have to see it. You have to hear communication. You have to talk to people, and definitely look 2 steps ahead.
Hmm.
And even when when we're not building ourselves, doing construction management and oversee a third party contractor, you still have to ask questions.
Right.
uh, they and, there are good people, there are bad people, there are experienced people, there are inexperienced people. You can usually forecast certain mistakes when you kind of see the level of experience of the people you're dealing with. So
Mhm.
communication is number one issue. If you only review reports once a month, if you only review payment applications once a month when they come in,
Mhm.
you're going to miss a ton of things. And but if you're there, if you're involved, if you check in regularly, we typically do at least weekly OAC, own architect contractor meetings,
Mhm.
and it's very important to be there and ask questions. But even beyond that, just stop by the job site, have a walk with the superintendent,
Mhm.
ask questions, see what's happening, see what's next on schedule. That's when you can anticipate things. And especially in large commercial projects, it's not always possible to forecast every single detail.
Mhm.
Designers, engineers, architects miss things all the time. And if construction professionals study the plans uh, ahead of time, then there's more chance of them catching those gaps. And if they
Right.
catch those gaps, then we can get them addressed. And yes, sometimes costs do go up because certain things were missed, but then sometimes they also go down because we were able to find a less expensive supplier.
Is there a way to automate certain functions or features in your industry? Have you identified some areas of the company that could be automated, and so that it makes the efficiency of the operation better?
Yeah, I'm I'm on a mission to find the most automated processes there are, and I'm
Mhm.
constantly searching. Especially in the last couple of years with AI revolution, there's been a lot of a lot of new tools that are being implemented. Like recently, we were looking at a tool that automates a lot of accounting and bookkeeping functions.
Mhm.
So in construction, you get hundreds of bills fly
Right.
through your desk. Some companies are still mailing their invoices, and they need to be manually scanned and manually inputted into the system. A lot of other work is digital these days, but accounting was one of those things where you have to manually take an invoice, look at what you're being billed for, and then manually input it into a computer database,
Mhm.
whether it's a construction management software or directly into accounting software. But
Mhm.
that process has been manual for, I don't know, decades, if not centuries.
Right. Yeah.
uh, and so now with AI, uh, these systems automatically read through the invoice, and they can input the data into the database without any human interaction.
Oh wow.
So once, I mean, obviously, today it's not perfect. It still makes mistakes, so it does require some oversight, but it still saves a ton of time.
Right.
So little things like that. I was recently looking at another AI-based tool that helps architects and engineers uh, with their drafting process. So they can this tool, you load I think it's like an add-on to their drafting software,
Right.
where it scans the document and it automatically puts dimensions on all of the walls and all of their parameters, and then it adds automatically drafts details and things like that. I don't know yet how effective, or not effective, but how accurate it is.
Mhm.
But those things are already out there. So obviously over time that's going to help us out, and it's going to save a ton of time, and hopefully reduce a lot of human error factor.
Right. Yeah, it's the catching of those, like trying to find a way to integrate AI, or just modern technology where it can catch those details, like you were mentioning earlier, that can blow up a budget that could cost you $500,000 down the road. Seems like such a crucial. If whoever can figure that out,
I know, right?
the most efficiently, is automatically going to be worth $1 billion because of all construction, right? That's taking place. Let's talk about opportunities. How do you find your opportunities in construction? You mentioned partnerships, but is it difficult to acquire to acquire projects these days, like land, to go through the permitting process? What are you seeing out there right now?
So it's always easy to buy land. There's always somebody willing to sell it. The question comes down to price.
Mm-hmm.
Partnership right now is actually easier because of what's happening in capital markets. It's very difficult to get projects financed. So a lot of traditional developers that rely on traditional process of acquiring properties, acquiring land, going through entitlements, and then building them out, they're sitting on sidelines. And so for us, it opens up more opportunities, because a lot of the property owners are unable to sell their land to developers for the price that they want.
Right.
And so, for example, a meeting that we had just the other day, these property owners, they acquired a parcel. They went through some early stage entitlements, and they were hoping to sell it to a builder. Well, it's been about a year, and they only had one offer, and it was below their asking price. And other than that, they couldn't sell. So we're discussing this partnership opportunity where we can come in and say, look, put your property into a joint venture, and then we will help you raise additional financing, additional equity that's necessary, and help you get those projects built. And so these are the conversations that we're having, primarily right now around our area in Western Washington. And we're, we've been talking about it a long time. If we're ready to expand beyond our geography, and I think the answer is yes. So if an opportunity presents itself, we'd be happy to look at it. But yeah, because property owners cannot get the maximum value from the builders, from developers right now, today is the best time for them to partner with somebody like us. And then obviously development is not risk-free. They need to realize that there is risk. They may not do as well as we project, but generally speaking, there's an opportunity for them to add value beyond just the value.
Mm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Partnerships partnerships kind of get demonized a bit, a little bit more. I mean, they can be more difficult in business where things are not so cut and dry, especially if you have a business that requires a heavy operational load on a daily basis to function. And it also requires other components to work. But in construction, it's kind of pretty straightforward, right? I'm a construction guy. You're a money guy. You're a I have a facilitator in between, perhaps, for this transaction. Everyone seems to already have their roles kind of bracketed it out in construction. So partnerships seem to be a little bit more beneficial and like already set up in real estate and construction for success. And because when you go into operations of business, it's like, okay, you have to, what do you do well? What does your partner do well? And that's how you should split the jobs. But everyone already comes in with their own kind of specialties in construction and real estate.
Exactly. And, not to oversimplify things, but obviously construction, especially, there are complicated projects with a lot of complexities, with a lot of environmental issues and, various things that you have to deal with. So I don't want to oversimplify the task, but yes, generally speaking, there's, especially with development projects, uh, there's a pretty clear beginning uh, and pretty clear usually end, and the path from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's some open-ended business that, oh, well, here's a plan and here's a marketing plan, and we're
Right.
going to start implementing it, and we think we're going to need this much money, and then
Mm.
we're going to run out of that money, and then we're going to raise more money, and then what if we can't reach our goals because our marketing isn't working? There's a lot of those unknowns, a lot of variables, which of course there are variables in real estate development as well, but at least the path is more or less clear because you have your building design, you have your construction permits, and you know that when the building's done or when the project is done, you're either going to lease it up and refinance it, or you're going to sell it, and you know what the exit strategy is.
Right.
So from that standpoint, if you're a property owner and you're looking for a partner to help you get to that end, uh,
Mm.
then you can easily agree on what is every party, what are they responsible for.
Mhm.
Some property owners tell us, look, here's the land, do whatever needs to be done. I don't want to be involved in day-to-day operations.
Right.
And some tell us that no, we actually want to be involved, we want to know what's happening, we want to learn and potentially do the next project on our own, which we're fine with. We're happy
Mhm.
to educate, we're happy to share our experiences, and if this is the only project we ever do, great. If there are more projects that we can do in the future, even better.
Mm. So what's next for? Is it GIS or is it GIS? How do you? What is it? Just
GIS, yeah.
GIS? Okay.
GIS.
So what's next for GIS? Are you all? You kind of mentioned earlier about expanding into other territories. Is there another? Is there another opportunities that you want to pursue outside of what you're currently doing in terms of development? What's your goal?
So our goal right now is to revamp our single family division and have a pipeline of high-end single family projects. We're still focusing on our area here in Western Washington, just simply because there's a lot of opportunities. We are getting ready to start a new 300 unit apartment building in Tacoma, Washington. We're hoping to expecting to close on financing here in the next couple of weeks, and should get going on it this summer. So that's going to be a nice project for the next 2 years. We're looking at a new hospitality project. That's a little bit of a new uh, avenue for us. We've done some early development hospitality projects in the past, but we didn't go through full development and construction. So this is an interesting opportunity. And looking outside of Washington to other areas, we're not very active at it, but since I'm here broadcasting to the world, if you guys have an opportunity, I'm happy to happy to take a look at it.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, how do people get in contact with you if they're interested in reaching out for a consultancy or having you come in and design something for them and build it?
Yeah, giscompanies.co is our website. And then my personal LinkedIn, Eugene Gershman. You can look me up on LinkedIn. EG_developer is my Instagram account. I'm generally available. I usually respond to direct messages personally. So feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Eugene, thank you so much for coming on today and kind of talking us through the construction industry and kind of where it is and some of the things that need to change to get it to a place where it can be automated. I mean, I know that everyone's kind of going there. Some industries go faster than others. Construction will be the last industry to automate. I'm sure.
I mean, if you think about it, concrete's been invented, hundreds of years ago. We're still using it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I do have one more question. How does GIS value innovation in construction, like using innovative techniques and um, like innovative solutions to challenges that have been persisting for a long time?
We love it. We love it. I look at new technologies all the time. I keep following 3D concrete printing technology. I think it's an amazing approach to construction. I keep researching, looking at construction robots. that would come in and do a lot of the manual work. I get criticized because they say that I'm taking jobs away from people, but I'm like, look, people make mistakes, and if a robot could come in and lay your tile without making any mistakes, without wasting any material, wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be amazing. From a business owner standpoint, yeah, absolutely. It's so true. But that is the reality, and I think it's what happens, right? So
Of course.
as technology, you got a degree in economics. One of the primary things about economics and supply and demand is that as technology enters into a market, then it's going to change the balance between supply and demand and how efficiently markets work.
Of course.
It's just the nature of modern business, and so those tile layers will have to just learn how to ironwork, maybe, or something like that. Something that keeps their skills ahead of the curve. I think that if workers and employees worked on skill refinement and skill enhancement, as opposed to saying you're taking the job away, I think that by kind of focusing on skill enhancement and making us continuing to stay ahead of the curve, and I get it. Business owners are in a unique position where we kind of look around the corner, and that's our job to try to stay ahead. But I think that also needs to be the case with employees, right?
Of course,
what is your industry doing? Where is it going? And how can you be on the leading edge of that so that when things change, you are the go-to employee that someone like you will look for to kind of lead the way in implementation?
Right. And we've seen it throughout history. When technology entered farmlands, people were upset that machines are taking their jobs, and people adapted. Then during the Industrial Revolution, when conveyors and assembly lines got invented, people were upset the machines were taking their jobs, and they adapted. Then computers were taking people's job, and people adapted again. So I'm sure we're going to adapt again. I don't know what the solution is. What's going to be the next evolution of human job and growth? But I'm sure there's going to be a change.
Yeah, this certainly will be. All industries change. We're seeing it in the fast food industry right now, where they, passed that legislation in California about the minimum wage law that is going to ultimately, there are trade-offs in economics. That's rule number one, that people face trade-offs. And so when you artificially put in a price floor, then people get cut. In the short term, in the long term, jobs may continue to become unavailable because business owners are not inert blocks of wood that don't respond to things like legislation, right? Like what happens is people get legislation. They say that I have to pay more. Your cost for payroll goes up 20 to 30%. And I made this case in a stream I did before, which is businesses' ability to absorb 20 or 30% increase in something like labor. And if you're doing an aggregate amount over the course of 5 years, labor has gone up over 100% in many cases. The ability for businesses to absorb that just continually gets infinitesimally small, their ability to survive it long term. And so it doesn't always work out. And business owners will respond. And we're seeing that, right? Where these restaurateurs are inputting robots and drive-throughs and kiosks so that they can serve people more efficiently in their lobbies of their restaurants. And it's just going to happen. And unfortunately, the people that get caught when the tree shakes are a lot of the people who have lower skills. But if you're watching this and you are a worker, skill acquisition will be your number one tool, especially in 2024, where education is abundant and very low cost, if it has any cost at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So Eugene, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. I'm interested. I'm going to be following your projects. I love hearing from innovative and creative construction design firms. I just get excited. I went to a city planning conference in Warsaw, and that was pretty cool just to hear about what people are doing and kind of where the focus is on technology, like in Europe and stuff like that. And with the global economy, construction trends tend to, eventually make their way across the pond. So,
Right. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's fun watching what's happening in other countries. Europe and Asia is innovating differently than the U.S. And sometimes these technologies converge, and something new and great happens. So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you all for watching. And for Eugene, I'm Micah. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.